Seatbelts on school buses. Out of tragedy, a Texas law to buckle up your children nearly forgotten.
There was money available. There was no demand for money.
With federal leaders now calling for belts on buses across the nation.
We do what we can to make sure our students are safe.
And another deadly crash here at home.
It's a tragedy that more children had to be killed and injured.
Parents push state lawmakers to overhaul a failed program meant to save student lives.
We were called to, once again, to do the right thing.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of State of Texas in Depth. I'm Josh Hinkle. It was a costly concept, but one state lawmakers agreed could save student lives. Put this, a lap shoulder belt in every new school bus bought by Texas school districts. The idea began in 2006 with grieving parents trying to honor their daughters' memories and protect other students. And it seemed to work until we discovered leaders' failure to continue their cause. March 29th, 2006.
Really, life is a jumble after that.
A bus bound for a girls' soccer tournament overturned on a rainy highway.
Your heart just sinks as a parent. This can't really be happening.
Steve Foreman's daughter Allison was trapped under the bus, her arm nearly severed beneath the wreckage for more than an hour.
The news reported that 2 girls had been killed.
Thought that I would go to the hospital to meet the girls returning. Ashley never made it back.
Brad Brown's daughter Ashley and her teammate Alicia Benura died that day.
I remember the first time that Brad and I got together, and I said, you know, I don't know how to really sit here and talk to you because you lost your daughter, my daughter survived, and he said, let's just do what we've got to do. Let's just get together and try to make a difference.
It started with what that bus from Beaumont was missing.
Because there were no seat belts, she had been violently thrown out of her seat.
That would have allowed them to stay in the seat, even surviving an accident as horrible as that one.
Families impacted by the crash took their concerns to the state capitol and eventually saw the passage of Ashley and Alicia's law. It requires lap shoulder belts on all new buses if state funding is available. One bus alone is at least $80,000. A bus with those belts cost at least another $7,000. So lawmakers gave $10 million to the Texas Education Agency to give to school districts that first round. It was enough to strap in about 70,000 students. But soon faced with budget cuts, the TEA slashed most of the funding from the program and never asked lawmakers for more money. 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, there was no money that was requested for this program. Why?
It's very difficult to award money when the districts themselves don't show an interest in it.
Just 12 of more than 1,000 school districts in the entire state applied, and only 4 out of that number actually qualified and received funding. The TEA says, simply put, the program didn't make financial sense for many school administrators because it didn't pay for the entire cost of the bus, only the seatbelts.
It's like telling you, Josh, I'll pay for the seatbelts if you go out and buy a new car. Well, the heavy lifting is still in buying the vehicle itself.
And again, the law does not require districts to buy buses with belts if the state has no funding for them. Senator Eddie Lucio wrote Ashley and Alicia's law, and he admits it didn't live up to what he promised parents. In the last few sessions, have you asked for money for this specific program?
Quite frankly, it was one that I should have paid a little bit more attention to. I was hoping that there would be funds made available for that cause, but it just got by me.
During our investigation, he wrote to state leaders, urging them to take up the issue once again, considering more money or maybe a statewide seatbelt mandate if it's not available.
There's no need for us to ignore that issue ever again.
It would be a beautiful thing in Ashley's memory to see an effective legislative effort to make lap shoulder belts on school buses the law in Texas.
In a few months, these fathers will mark 1 decade since the crash that changed their lives. And in that time, their frustration over school bus safety has only grown.
When is enough going to be enough?
What excuses have to be made for school administrators in ignoring this?
After the latest bus crash that killed 2 students in Houston, lawmakers, including Lucio, are calling for action. We are awaiting word of what they will do ahead of the next legislative session in 2017, but we will keep checking back. As the parents in our report call out school administrators for not doing more, we speak to the largest district in Central Texas, how Austin ISD was able to put belts on every one of its buses, and why it might be difficult for other districts to do the same. Next on this special edition of State of Texas In Depth. Federal law requires seatbelts on smaller buses, those typically transporting special education students. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has chosen not to mandate seatbelts on larger school buses, saying they're already safe by design. But this summer, the agency concluded having belts on buses across the U.S. would save 2 lives every year. And just days ago, the agency's chief announced a new position, saying concentrate on this simple, basic statement: school buses should have seatbelts, period. One of the districts in Texas that made seatbelts on all buses a priority was the Austin Independent School District. And with me now is the transportation director for the district, Chris Hafizadeh. Thank you very much for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
So your district was able to get some of the funding from the state through the seatbelt program. Why do you think more districts didn't apply for that money?
Well, I mean, there is many reasons for that. One of them is that we are fortunate that we are able to purchase our school buses per bond. So some districts don't have that, and they may have to, purchase from their budget. So every year we have a replacement plan, and we do, retire some buses, and we do buy brand new buses. We are the district that at least we have lap belts on all of our buses. And since 4 years ago, when the TEA funding came out, we decided to move forward with putting, lap shoulder belt buses.
Some have criticized other districts for not implementing any seatbelts on their buses. Why do you feel that school district administrators and transportation directors have shied away from something like that?
Well, school buses are safest mode of transportation. They are, the way they're built with the high back seats inside the bus and things. Is it needed 100% to have seat belts on the bus? Some folks think, no, it's not, because they're already, safe inside the bus. But us as a district, we feel like that's additional safety for our students to have it. So that's why we decided to move forward with that idea.
Some transportation directors in the state have said that it's all about the funding, and that school funding, particularly transportation funding, hasn't really changed from the state since the 80s.
That is correct. The formula for the funding for the state has not changed. Funding is an important thing for us. We always welcome more, but our students got to go to school no matter what, and we just got to make sure we do whatever we can to keep them safe.
Have you seen other benefits from having seatbelts on buses for students or for the drivers?
Yes. One of the main benefits is if you have your seatbelt on inside the bus, then obviously the student is not standing up. The students are in their seat exactly and sitting properly.
Other transportation directors have said that there are challenges with actually putting seatbelts on buses, and that's one of the reasons that they haven't done it, specifically getting kids to actually wear the seatbelts, and also getting them out of the seatbelts if there's ever an emergency.
Well, those are good points. Our bus drivers cannot, view every child when they're driving if they have their seatbelts on or off. We do recommend that. We ask the help of our parents, and also we do announce it for our students to keep their seatbelts on. Now, do we know if every child has it on? No, we're not going to get there. But that's not the reason for us to stop adding them on the buses.
Thank you, Chris, for being with us. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you so much.
The part of the state's school bus seatbelt law many school districts are not following, even some here in Central Texas. Next on this special edition of State of Texas In Depth. In 2007, state lawmakers aimed to put seatbelts on all new school buses in Texas, but the law they crafted also required school districts to report all bus accidents and injuries to the Texas Education Agency. But But after speaking with the agency, we discovered that often those reports are inaccurate and sometimes misleading. About 200 school districts and charter schools, that's about 16% statewide, failed to turn in those numbers for the last school year, and some of those districts are right here in Central Texas. So we went to those school administrators in our area and asked for those numbers ourselves so parents can know a district's safety records. We also tell you which districts have belts and on how many of their buses. They're all on our website, kxan.com, right now.
Every legislator wants to have the accurate information in front of them to make the best decisions that they can. A representative should be talking to their superintendents and saying, we need you to do this to make sure we make the best decisions that we can in Austin.
These are your own records, 200 school districts not reporting those numbers to the Texas Education Agency.
Well, you have more than 1,200 school districts in the state of Texas. There may be rural districts that had no accidents at all, that run a very limited number of bus routes. We may be talking about some charter schools that are in there that have no bus or transportation at all.
There are a lot on this list that did get transportation funding from the state.
The vast majority have reported something in, but that tells us that what we need to do is re-emphasize our efforts in reminding districts of their responsibility in reporting these types of numbers to the Texas Education Agency.
Texas Education Agency just gets those numbers. If the districts don't report, the agency doesn't have to do anything about that.
We are very limited in what we can do when those numbers don't come in. We offer reminders, we offer notices to school districts when certain data has to be reported into the agency throughout the course of the year, but ultimately we're reliant on the local school districts to live up to the obligations that are set out in law.
Is that a flaw in the law, that there's no enforcement for districts that don't actually report those numbers?
That's a question for the legislature. I mean, they're the ones who help establish what needs to be reported into the Texas Education Agency. We cannot exceed our authority in regard to what we can do to school districts or not do to school districts. All we can do is the legislature's asked us to compile this information. We're asking you to report it in. Please report it in.
Coming up, taking their fight to the state capitol again. The parents and a survivor of the Westbrook crash are pushing lawmakers to overhaul the school bus seatbelt law when this special edition of State of Texas In Depth returns.
It's crazy to think, it's already been almost 10 years since the accident.
In late March 2006, Allison Stoos and her Westbrook High soccer team were bound for a match out of town on board a bus that rolled off the highway.
I, didn't have a seatbelt on, so I didn't stay in my seat. I was pulled out of the window and pinned under the bus. It took them over an hour to rescue me and my friend Devin from being pinned there. And then I was in the hospital for about a month's time, rebuilding my arm, and I'm still permanently injured from that.
In the aftermath, Allison worked with lawmakers to require seatbelts on all new school buses in the state. But now she's back at the Capitol with her father, Steve Foreman, a decade later, after learning that law really never worked.
Everything was in place, and yet the school districts just looked the other way.
The law is there, right? To be effective, it needs to be funded. And then it needs to be enforced.
Brad Brown lost his own daughter, Ashley, on that same bus crash and believes a lap shoulder belt could have saved her life. This month, the head of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, which regulates school buses, announced a new position saying concentrate on this simple, basic statement. School buses should have seatbelts, period.
This policy shift turns it from a why do we have to do this to why haven't we done this?
These three are now speaking with state lawmakers again, hoping an overhaul of the seatbelt law will work this time around.
I really want to see this change go through because I don't want other kids to have to deal with what I went through in high school.
And we'll continue to follow up on this issue as it plays out at the Capitol. But remember, these lawmakers are the people you vote into office. So if you have something to say, contact them. We'll tell you how on KXAN.com. And whether you like or don't like what they're doing at the Capitol, let them know when you head to the ballot box next November. From all of us at KXAN's political team, thank you for watching this special edition of State of Texas In Depth. Have a great day.